Downtown Atlanta buzzed with the rhythm of a Friday night, cars honking, laughter spilling from open-air patios, the deep thump of bass from a nearby club blending with the cry of street performers on Peachtree Street. But amidst the motion of a city alive with energy, Malik Johnson found a rare moment of stillness. He stood at the edge of the crosswalk with Jasmine Reed, the woman he'd loved since sophomore year at Georgia State. The sky was dimming into a dusky purple, and the air was warm with the promise of spring. She was laughing at something he'd said, something dumb, probably, because her laugh always came easiest when he wasn't trying. "Come on, Mr. History teacher," she teased, her fingers brushing his. "You gonna explain the origins of this traffic light too?" He smirked. "Actually, it was invented by Garrett Morgan. Black man, in case you didn't know." She rolled her eyes and let out a dramatic sigh. "Of course it was." He reached down and gently took her hand as the walk signal blinked white. It was a simple gesture, loving, intimate. Ordinary. They stepped into the crosswalk together, hands intertwined, as the traffic paused. But they didn't make it halfway across before a loud honk cut through the night. A police cruiser, black and white with its lights off but engine rumbling, suddenly surged into the corner of the intersection. It didn't block them, not quite, but it edged just close enough to make Malik slow his steps. Jasmine squeezed his hand. "What the hell?" Two white officers sat inside. One of them was already opening his door. Malik tensed. Not because he'd done anything wrong, they were in a crosswalk, crossing on a walk signal. But because something in the air had shifted. The way the officer stepped out, with unnecessary force, hand already near his holster, made Malik's stomach twist. "Hey," the officer barked, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "You too. Stop right there." They stopped. Jasmine's hand didn't leave his, but her grip tightened. "What's the problem, officer?" Malik asked, keeping his voice calm, even. He'd taught himself years ago, never raise your voice, never make sudden moves, never give them a reason. "You're causing a public disturbance," the officer snapped. His name tag read Stone. Holding hands, shouting, laughing, people thought it was suspicious. "Suspicious?" Jasmine echoed, incredulous. "We were literally just." Malik gently squeezed her fingers to silence her. "We were crossing the street," he said. "On the signal." The second officer, younger and quiet, stayed near the cruiser, his eyes scanning the sidewalk. People were starting to notice, phones out, some recording. A white couple a few feet away stared openly. "You raised your voice," Stone continued. "And you were aggressive in body language. That's a violation of the city's public order code." Jasmine blinked. "You've got to be kidding." "No ma'am," Stone said flatly. "ID, both of you." Malik pulled out his wallet, handed over his license. Jasmine did the same, visibly shaking now. Not from fear. From rage. They stood there in the middle of a crosswalk as the night continued around them, cars inching past, clubgoers stopping to gawk, and a girl in a red hoodie muttering, "This is some bullsh *T. The younger officer returned with their IDs. "They're clean." Stone didn't budge. He pulled out his ticket pad. Scribbled something down. Ripped off 2 slips. "For violating public conduct statutes," he said, handing one to each of them. $50 fine. You can contest it in court." Malik stared at the paper. He didn't even move. Jasmine looked up at Stone. "You really doing this? For holding hands?" Stone just turned away and walked back to the cruiser. The other officer hesitated, looked at them, and muttered quietly, "I'm sorry." The engine revved. The cruiser pulled away. And Malik stood there, feeling the weight of every injustice that had come before this one. Jasmine was crying now, not loud, not messy. Just quiet tears sliding down her cheeks. Malik, she whispered. What the hell was that? He didn't answer right away. Because what could he say? That this was America? That being black and joyful in public was somehow a threat? That all it took was a look, a gesture, a hand in another, and suddenly, you were dangerous? He folded the ticket in half and shoved it in his pocket. We're gonna fight it, he said. Every damn inch. And in that moment, something shifted in him. Not just frustration or anger, but the beginning of a fire. He didn't know that what had just happened, a single moment on a city street, would spark something bigger. That a recording would go viral. That voices would rise. That a system would try to silence them. He didn't know that the true battle was just beginning. But he knew this much. They were not backing down. By 10:42 p.m. that same night, a 38-second video was already climbing through the algorithms of Twitter and Instagram. Captured shakily by a teenager across the street, the clip showed Malik and Jasmine standing in the crosswalk, hand in hand, while Officer Stone aggressively confronted them. The audio was muffled, but you could make out his voice barking the words, "public disturbance," and Jasmine's soft, wounded response, "We were just holding hands." It ended with the two of them standing still as the police cruiser drove off and the girl behind the camera whispering, "This is some racist BS. I hope they sue." By midnight, the video had 20,000 views. By morning, it had over 4 million. Malik didn't check his phone until the following afternoon. He'd slept poorly, tossing beside Jasmine as the weight of what had happened pressed on both of them like a storm cloud stuck overhead. When he did open Twitter, his mentions were flooded. At its_J2B, this man got a ticket for holding hands? In 2025? In Atlanta? At HistoryLover82, the cops ain't even try to hide it. Straight up racial profiling. At Malik for Justice, #hand in hand, this isn't just about Malik and Jasmine. This is about all of us. Malik's name was trending. So was #crosswalk incident and #stonewalling, a play on the officer's name. News stations had picked it up. Local activists were already calling for action. He stared at his screen, blinking, as Jasmine paced their small apartment kitchen. "I'm not letting it go, Malik," she said. Her voice was sharp, but it trembled around the edges. "They humiliated us. And for what? For being black and in love?" He looked up at her. "I know. I'm not either." There was a knock at the door. Malik opened it slowly. A woman in plain clothes stood there, dark curly hair, blazer over a black tee, jeans, and worn boots. She held up a badge. Detective Carla Mendez. Internal Affairs Division. Atlanta PD. He blinked. "Already?" She offered a quick, tight nod. "Believe me, I'm as surprised as you are. Can I come in?" Carla sat on the edge of the couch, notepad on her knee. She didn't record the conversation, not yet, but her pen moved quickly. Jasmine sat beside Malik, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "I saw the footage," Carla said. "I'm not here to defend Officer Stone. I'm here because this isn't the first complaint filed against him." Malik raised an eyebrow. "That so?" He's had 6 use of force complaints in the past 4 years. 2 of them involved black men during traffic stops. 1 was quietly settled out of court. He's protected. Jasmine leaned forward. Protected by who? Carla didn't answer immediately. "There's a culture in the department," she said carefully. "A group of officers, veterans mostly, who look out for each other. They call it the gray line. Not quite blue, not quite black and white. Just gray. They do things that don't show up in the reports. But people know." Malik's eyes darkened. "So what happens now? I need you both to give formal statements." We'll be launching an internal review, but I won't lie to you, the system protects its own. If this had stayed a local matter, they might have swept it. But it didn't, Jasmine cut in. People saw. It's everywhere. Carla nodded. Exactly. That's your leverage. The court of public opinion. That night, Malik agreed to go on a local news show. He sat under bright lights, heart hammering, as the anchor leaned forward and asked, "Why do you think the officers targeted you and your fiancée?" He looked straight into the camera. Because we were black. And happy. And visible. The anchor blinked. You really believe that's all it was? Malik didn't flinch. I don't believe it. I know it. By Monday morning, protests had begun outside the Atlanta Police Department's Central Station. Not huge, not yet, but loud. Organized. Determined. Dozens of people marched with signs. Holding hands is not equal to crime. We are not a disturbance. Fire Stone. Break the gray line. Inside the station, Officer Stone watched from the windows, jaw clenched. He turned to a fellow officer, a tall man with a buzz cut named Riley. They're making me out to be some kind of monster, Stone growled. I did my job. They were drawing attention. Causing a scene. Riley shrugged. You think they'll stick you with the blame? Stone narrowed his eyes. Not if the department has any backbone left. I got friends. I got support. He looked back out the window. But if they want to play this game in public, he muttered, then they better be ready for the fire. Back at the apartment, Jasmine was staring at her laptop. Her hospital supervisor had just emailed. She was being placed on administrative leave due to the media attention. She looked up at Malik with wide eyes. They're punishing me now too. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. We're not backing down. She held on to him, fingers digging into his back. I'm scared, Malik. I know, he whispered. But we're not alone anymore. But neither of them knew that the real retaliation hadn't even begun. In a dark corner of the internet, a user with the handle GrayShield74 posted Malik's home address on an anonymous message board. And down in the records room of the police department, someone was quietly deleting video footage from a cruiser dashboard camera. At first, it was subtle. A thread on Reddit claiming that Malik had a history of resisting police, no evidence, just vague anecdotes. A blurry photo, posted on a local Facebook group, showing a man who looked like Malik at a 2020 protest that turned violent. The caption read, "Same guy? Looks like he's got a thing for causing problems." Then came the leaks. Someone emailed Jasmine's employer from an anonymous burner address, claiming she'd lied on her nursing license application. The hospital froze her credentials, pending verification. By Wednesday, Malik's old college roommate got a call from a local reporter asking about radical student groups they'd been part of. None of it was true. But that didn't matter. The internet doesn't need truth to ruin a name. You think this is coincidence? Malik asked, slamming his laptop shut. This is coordinated. Jasmine nodded silently, her eyes hollow from 3 straight nights without real sleep. They're trying to drown us in lies. Carla came by that evening. She looked 10 years older than when they'd first met. I told you there were people protecting Stone, she said quietly. Now they're protecting themselves. And that means destroying you. Later that night, Jasmine got a text from an unknown number. Just 5 words. We know where you live. She dropped her phone. Malik snatched it up, reading the message twice. And then came the knock. Not at the door, but at the bedroom window. Malik yanked open the curtains. Nothing. Just the parking lot, dimly lit. But Jasmine was already shaking. Tears in her eyes. They're watching us. The next day, Carla pulled Malik into her car and drove him to a part of town he didn't recognize, a quiet block near the edge of a rail yard. "I'm going to show you something," she said. They parked behind a rusted-out warehouse. She unlocked a metal door and led him inside. Inside, a dusty archive room. Filing cabinets. Old boxes. And a locked safe. She opened it, pulled out a USB, and plugged it into a tablet. The screen flickered to life. A video began playing, shaky dashcam footage. A nighttime traffic stop. 2 black teenagers. A cop stepping out of the vehicle. Malik's stomach turned. It was Officer Stone. The video had no audio, but the actions were clear. He grabbed the taller boy and slammed him against the hood. No visible reason. Just rage. Force. Carla fast-forwarded. More clips. Different dates. Different kids. Always black. Always aggressive. Always Stone. She looked at Malik. He was protected. These were never filed. They were archived. Buried. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because if you speak out, and if this leaks, they can't cover him anymore. Not when there's a pattern." Malik looked at her, his hands cold. "But they'll come for me harder." She nodded. "They already are." Back home, Jasmine was on a video call with her younger sister, Tiana, who was studying in Chicago. "I'm proud of you," Tiana said. "Even if it's scary. You're doing what most people wouldn't." Jasmine smiled weakly. "I didn't want to be a symbol." "I know. But maybe that's the point. You didn't choose this. But now that it's here, maybe you fight so other girls don't have to." The call ended, and Jasmine sat still for a long time. Then she stood up and opened her laptop. She began writing. By Thursday morning, Jasmine's blog post had gone viral. "The day holding my fiancé's hand became a crime." She detailed everything: the sidewalk, the confrontation, the threat, the fear. And then the retaliation. The blog was raw. Honest. Furious. We weren't shouting. We weren't protesting. We were crossing the street. That's it. But because we were black and visible, we became targets. Not for what we did, but for what we represented. Love. Confidence. Freedom. It exploded online. Hashtag Hand in Hand began trending again. Celebrities reposted it. Activists from New York to Oakland called for Officer Stone's termination. Jasmine's blog hit 2 million reads in 24 hours. But the fire wasn't over. That same day, Officer Stone sat in the locker room at the precinct, scrolling his phone. "They're coming after me," he muttered. Riley, his partner, looked up. "They're just loud. We've seen this before. It dies down. This one's different." Stone stared at a screenshot from Jasmine's blog. His face. Her words. Everything laid bare. "They're turning her into a damn martyr," he snarled. He stood, grabbed his belt, and holstered his gun. "I'm not waiting to get fired. If the department won't back me up, I'll fix it my way." That night, a fire started in the alley behind Malik and Jasmine's apartment. Just trash, but close enough to their building to panic the tenants. Fire trucks came. Police too. Malik stood in the street barefoot, watching the flames. Someone had left a note taped to the dumpster. "We warned you. Get quiet, or get burned." But it was too late for silence. The truth was coming. And so was a war. The storm came at 2:46 a.m. Not thunder or rain, but fists slamming on their door. "Police! Open up!" Jasmine bolted upright. Malik was already on his feet, heart pounding. He peered through the peephole. Not uniforms. Plain clothes. He opened the door an inch, chain still on. Warrant? The man on the left flashed a badge too fast to read. Questioning. Step outside. Call my lawyer, Malik said. The man didn't blink. We're not here to play games. Jasmine grabbed her phone. Dialed Carla. Voicemail. Malik shut the door. 10 seconds later, the lock exploded inward. They dragged him out in boxers. Slammed him to the wall. Jasmine screamed. Resisting arrest, someone shouted. Cameras weren't rolling. They didn't need truth, they'd write the story later. By dawn, Malik was booked. County holding. Fluorescent lights, sour coffee, piss-stained benches. The holding cell was a concrete tomb. Malik sat between a heroin addict and a guy with a neck tattoo that read "No snitchin'." He wasn't charged with anything. But he wasn't released either. Time passed. Hours. No lawyer. No answers. He asked for water. They gave him a paper cup and a sneer. Jasmine, meanwhile, was on her third press call, trembling. They took him. No warrant. No explanation. They didn't even let him put on pants. CNN picked up the story. So did The Root, Vice, and The Intercept. Public pressure mounted. But it wasn't enough. Elsewhere. Carla was running. Literally, sprinting down the hall of an old Federal Archive building in D.C. She'd flown in hours earlier, hunting what she called a bulletproof thread. Something that couldn't be spun, buried, or smeared. Inside the archives, she found it. Internal Memo, 2018. Officer Stone, multiple citizen complaints. Body cam redacted. Disciplinary board voted 3-2 to suspend, overridden by Captain Healy. Reason, departmental optics post-Ferguson. She stared at it for a long time. Healy was still captain. Still protecting him. She snapped a photo. Sent it to 3 newsrooms. Then called Jasmine. They buried a suspension, she said. I've got the proof. By the time Malik was released, 17 hours after his arrest, the city was on fire. Not literally. But close. Protesters had gathered outside the courthouse. Chants echoed into the streets. Justice for Malik. End Stone's shield. Local news ran images of Jasmine crying on courthouse steps. Across town, Stone watched on a precinct TV. He turned to his captain. You're not going to bench me? Captain Healy rubbed his temples. You're a liability. I did my job. Your job's not to start a war. Stone stood up, red-faced. They're trying to destroy me for a handshake. You gonna let that stand? Healy didn't answer. But behind his eyes, fear. That night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. Malik's face was bruised. His wrists cut from zip ties. He tried to smile, to calm her. But something in his eyes was broken. They could have killed me, he whispered. And the report would have said I slipped. He looked down. I didn't want to be a symbol either. Jasmine nodded, tears falling freely. But now we are. 2 days later, the bombshell dropped. Leaked body cam footage, Officer Stone vs. Teenager, 2019. It aired on every major network. The footage, brutal, unedited, showed Stone slamming a 14-year-old black boy into a brick wall. No cause. No context. Just violence. It hit like an earthquake. By morning, the governor had issued a statement. We are reviewing all internal protections for officers with past misconduct. No one is above accountability. Captain Healy was suspended. And Stone? Gone. No one knew where. Some said he left town. Others claimed he was being protected off-record. Carla wasn't so sure. But the final twist came in the form of an envelope. No name. No return address. Dropped under Carla's office door. Inside, a USB. And a note. They're going to bury everything. This is the truth. If you're brave enough to burn for it. Carla plugged it in. It was Stone's personal audio, a recording. From the night of the sidewalk incident. Unedited. His words. I don't care what they're doing. Two black people hugging on the street, it ain't right. Send a message. Chilling. Real. Undeniable. Carla stared at the screen, stunned. And whispered, now it's war. The city was boiling. By the third day after the footage dropped, no one talked about anything else. The audio of Officer Stone's cold, deliberate words had gone viral, stitched onto TikToks, quoted in morning news cycles, and replayed in classrooms. Two black people hugging on the street, it ain't right. Send a message. It was undeniable. Undebatable. Unforgivable. But institutions don't change because they feel shame. They change because they're forced to. And now, those institutions were getting nervous. At City Hall, phones rang non-stop. Petitions demanded Stone be prosecuted. Emails flooded the mayor's inbox. Protests doubled. Then tripled. Barricades were set around the police department. Helicopters hovered. Streets were blocked. Schools were closed. But behind the smoke and slogans, something more dangerous brewed. Retaliation. Malik knew it when he spotted the car parked across the street. Same gray sedan, day and night. Engine off, but always someone inside. Jasmine saw it too. Do you think they'll try something? She asked, her voice tight. Malik didn't answer. Instead, he nailed shut the back gate and double-checked the security cams. Carla called that night. They're trying to run damage control, she said. I heard from someone inside the DA's office, they're going to offer Stone early retirement. No trial. Quiet exit. What? Jasmine exploded. After everything? They think it'll calm things down, Carla replied. They think it'll make people forget. But the city didn't forget. They remembered every second of that recording. Every bruise on Malik's arms. Every cry Jasmine let out on the courthouse steps. Then came the letter. Slipped under Malik and Jasmine's door. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper. You think you're heroes? Keep talking, and next time, we don't miss. No signature. No fingerprint. Just hate in ink. Jasmine wanted to leave the city. Let's go to Atlanta. Or LA. Just for a while, she whispered, sitting on the edge of their bed. I'm scared, Malik. I don't want to wake up to fire on our porch. But Malik was silent. Then he stood up and pulled the blinds wide open, exposing them to the street. I'm done hiding, he said. The next morning, Jasmine received a call from her employer. She was being placed on administrative leave. No explanation. No misconduct. Just a break. Until things calmed down. Malik got the same from his gig as a community educator. Everywhere they turned, silence, distance, polite apologies. The world had watched them bleed, cheerfully retweeted their story, and now? They were radioactive. Carla was different. She refused to drop it. She went live on her independent podcast, Civic Mirror, and laid it all out, the internal memos, the sealed body cam files, the DA's quiet exit plan, and the threat letter. It hit like a meteor. Listeners flooded the DA's office with angry calls. Within 48 hours, the district attorney held a press conference. "We are convening a grand jury. Officer Michael Stone will be subpoenaed. No one, regardless of badge or background, is above the law." But that same night, Stone vanished. Literally. Apartment cleared. No trace. His bank accounts frozen. His badge returned in a plain envelope to the department with no fingerprints. Gone. That should have been the end. But instead, it was only the beginning. 3 nights later, someone set fire to Carla's car. No one was hurt, she wasn't home, but the message was clear. And this time, it came with a symbol, a crude badge drawn in ash on her front door. The city blamed radicals. Conspiracy theorists blamed the feds. But Malik and Jasmine? They knew better. This wasn't chaos. This was control. In the shadows of public rage, power was quietly shifting hands. Captain Healy resigned, not fired, just faded away. A new chief was appointed. Black. Harvard-educated. Fluent in media speak. The city clapped. Papers praised. Progress, they called it. But Malik didn't buy it. He knew it was theater. "You put a new face in a broken mirror, it's still cracked," he told Jasmine. And just when it seemed like the storm had passed, a knock came. Late at night. 2 soft raps. Malik opened the door. An envelope sat alone on the porch. He opened it. Inside was a photo, grainy, black and white. It was from weeks ago. A still from a surveillance camera. Jasmine. Standing on the crosswalk. Stone, 5 feet away, his hand half raised. And behind him, someone else. A second officer. Watching. Not stopping. Not interfering. Just watching. There was a second photo. This time, a recent date. Same officer. In plain clothes. At Carla's podcast office. Standing across the street. Watching again. Malik turned cold. "They're still here," he said. Jasmine clenched the letter, trembling. "Then we don't stop." The city was burning beneath a calm sky. It was the silence before a reckoning. Jasmine stood at the window of their apartment, holding the photo of the second officer in one hand, and her phone in the other. She zoomed in. Enhancing every pixel. That face, she remembered it. A faint scar over his brow. A limp in his left leg. He wasn't just a bystander. He was part of it. "I saw him," she whispered to Malik. "That day. Right after the handcuffs. He was the one who held my arms down." Malik looked over her shoulder. "That's the missing piece." And it was. Because if there was a second officer on scene, then the story Officer Stone had filed was a lie. And if the body cam footage had been edited, which Carla now suspected, then someone at the department had tampered with evidence. Criminal conspiracy. Now they had a thread. And Malik was ready to pull. Carla arranged a meetup at an underground media hub in a converted church basement. Anonymous hackers, investigative freelancers, and a former NSA analyst named Boone were already there. They projected the images onto a large screen. Boone leaned in, analyzing. "Timestamp's been tampered with," he said flatly. "They scrubbed footage. But this here? That scar? That guy's real. I can find him." He was true to his word. The man's name, Officer Brent Dolan. Former Special Ops. Internal Affairs had buried a misconduct case on him 5 years ago, excessive force, no charges. Now, he was part of an unlisted tactical unit known among insiders as the Quiet Line. A shadow group. No uniforms. No records. Just enforcement. Off the books. Jasmine's hand trembled as she looked through the folder Boone slid over to her. Photos. Locations. Assignments. Surveillance. The last page? A picture of her. At her job. Taken 3 months ago. I never saw this, she whispered. I didn't even know I was being followed then. You weren't just followed, Boone replied. You were profiled. That was the spark. Carla launched a documentary special called Invisible Badges, exposing the Quiet Line Task Force, their sealed operations, and the tampering in Jasmine and Malik's case. It dropped online at midnight. By 6 a.m., it had over 2.3 million views. By 10 a.m., CNN picked it up. By noon, the mayor's office was under siege from media requests. And then the hammer dropped. A grand jury indicted Officer Brent Dolan. Charges: obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, unlawful surveillance, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. And finally, the city had no choice. Officer Stone was issued a federal warrant. He was tracked to an off-grid cabin in Wyoming. He didn't come quietly. When Jasmine and Malik watched the news footage of his arrest, they didn't cheer. There was no satisfaction in watching him dragged away. Just exhaustion. A quiet ache. They had fought for months, not for revenge, but to be seen. Heard. Treated like equals in a world that refused to acknowledge their dignity. And now, something was changing. Slowly. Painfully. But undeniably. 2 weeks later, the police chief stood in front of City Hall and issued a public apology to Malik and Jasmine. It was the first time the words racial profiling and targeted brutality were spoken by someone in uniform on camera. But Jasmine didn't attend the press conference. She was in the hospital, holding her newborn daughter. They named her Hope. 6 months passed. The city calmed. Reformed, not completely, but incrementally. New policies passed. Independent review boards were empowered. Carla's documentary was nominated for a Peabody Award. Malik and Jasmine returned to the crosswalk where it all began. She squeezed his hand. He kissed her forehead. And this time, no sirens. No officers. Just a green light. And the sound of peace.